Hawaii, the postcard paradise tourists dream of. But beneath the palm trees and luxury resorts, an invisible crisis is growing. Homelessness, addiction, survival? This isn't the Hawaii you think you know. This is the side of paradise no one talks about. Are you ready to see the truth? Globe Path. Travel documentary welcomes you to a journey beyond the postcard-perfect beaches and luxury resorts of Hawaii. Behind the breathtaking scenery lies a harsh reality: homelessness, addiction, and survival. Thousands live on the streets, abandoned by a system that was supposed to protect them. The cost of living is unbearable. The streets are packed with makeshift tents, families sleeping in cars, and individuals fighting just to wake up the next day. This is more than an economic issue. It's a humanitarian crisis, and it's getting worse. Hawaii's homeless crisis by the numbers. Hawaii's homelessness crisis has reached extreme levels, with thousands struggling to find shelter in one of the most expensive places in the world. On Oahu alone, the number of unsheltered homeless individuals has risen to 4,494, marking a 12% increase compared to last year. Across the state, over 6,223 people are experiencing homelessness, and nearly two-thirds of them live without access to shelters. The situation is especially dire for Native Hawaiians, who make up only 19% of the state's population, but account for 28% of its homeless community, highlighting a troubling disparity. The rise in homelessness is driven by several factors, including skyrocketing housing costs that have made it nearly impossible for low-income and middle-class residents to afford a home. The median price of a house in Hawaii has soared to $1.5 million in 2025, making homeownership unattainable for most families. Renting is not much easier, with the cost of a one-bedroom apartment ranging between $600 and $3,000 per month. Meanwhile, wages remain stagnant, with tourism workers, the backbone of Hawaii's economy, earning an average of less than $40,000 per year, creating an unsustainable gap between income and living expenses. Beyond housing costs, the price of basic necessities is adding to the financial burden. Milk costs $7.64 per gallon, bread is priced at $6.16, and gasoline averages $4.66 per gallon, forcing struggling families to choose between rent and essential items. The situation is exacerbated by wealthy out-of-state buyers who continue to purchase property, further driving up prices and pushing locals out of their communities. As more families and individuals are displaced, the streets of Hawaii become increasingly overcrowded with makeshift tents, vehicles used as homes, and people forced to sleep in public spaces. The mental health crisis and addiction epidemic are further fueling the crisis. More than 62% of homeless individuals suffer from at least one disabling condition, with 29% battling mental illness. Substance abuse is becoming more prevalent, as many turn to drugs as a way to cope with the harsh realities of life on the streets. Outreach teams report that overdoses and preventable health complications are on the rise, while treatment remains out of reach due to long waiting lists and lack of access to permanent housing. The state has attempted to address the crisis with various initiatives, including the proposed $100 million Kauhale Village project, which aims to create communal housing for the homeless population. However, despite these efforts, shelters remain overburdened, leaving many without critical resources. Some officials have introduced relocation programs to send homeless individuals to the mainland, but critics argue that this merely shifts the problem elsewhere, rather than providing long-term solutions. With shelters overwhelmed and mental health services lacking, the number of people living on the streets continues to climb. Tent cities are frequently dismantled, forcing displaced individuals to relocate without warning, often losing their personal belongings in the process. The government's response remains slow, leaving independent outreach groups to fill the gaps where they can. Advocates are calling for immediate action, demanding stronger tenant protections, better access to affordable housing, and increased mental health support. Hawaii's homelessness crisis is not just a statistic. It is a humanitarian emergency that demands urgent intervention. As more people lose their homes and struggle to find safety, the question remains whether real solutions will be implemented or if the crisis will continue to grow unchecked. Why so many people can't afford to live in Hawaii? Hawaii has become one of the most unaffordable places to live in the United States, forcing thousands of residents into financial hardship or outright displacement. The cost of living has skyrocketed beyond reach, making survival nearly impossible for many locals. Housing prices have soared to unprecedented levels, with the median home price on Oahu reaching $1.5 million in 2025. This means that even middle-class families struggle to afford a home, let alone those earning below the state's median income. The situation is worsened by out-of-state buyers who continue to purchase properties as vacation homes or investment assets, further driving up prices and pushing locals out of their communities. Renting is no better. A one-bedroom apartment costs between $1,600 and $3,000 per month, making it nearly impossible for low-income workers to secure stable housing. The average salary for a tourism worker is less than $40,000 annually, meaning that even full-time employees cannot afford basic living expenses without taking on multiple jobs or relying on financial assistance. Beyond housing, basic necessities are shockingly overpriced. Milk costs $7.64 per gallon, bread is $6.16, and gas averages $4.66 per gallon, prices that are significantly higher than the national average. The reason? Hawaii's geographic isolation means that nearly everything must be imported, leading to inflated costs that burden residents. The financial strain is forcing families into debt, with many relying on credit cards, loans, or second jobs just to make ends meet. Some residents have considered leaving the islands altogether, unable to sustain their livelihoods in a place that has become too expensive to call home. Despite these challenges, government intervention remains slow, and proposed solutions, such as affordable housing projects, have failed to keep pace with demand. Without urgent action, Hawaii's affordability crisis will continue to worsen, leaving more locals priced out of paradise. What the government is doing to fix it. Hawaii's government has introduced several initiatives to combat the state's growing homelessness crisis. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. Despite pledging $100 million to fund kauhale villages, communal housing projects meant to provide stability to unhoused individuals, the crisis continues to escalate. Shelters remain overcrowded, thousands of people live on the streets with no immediate relief, and funding bottlenecks slow progress on infrastructure. Kauhale villages are designed to function as self-sustaining communities, offering housing alongside essential services such as mental health support, addiction treatment, and job training. These villages represent a shift from temporary shelters to long-term solutions, aiming to give people the resources they need to reintegrate into society. However, the rollout has been slow, and demand far outweighs available resources. Most homeless individuals won't see benefits anytime soon, leaving them stuck in the cycle of displacement. Another government-led effort, the Return to Home program, aims to reduce Hawaii's homeless population by relocating individuals to family members on the mainland. Officials argue that this strategy helps those who have no financial support and allows them to reconnect with stability elsewhere. However, critics view the program as a form of forced displacement rather than a legitimate solution to the problem. Many who participate in the program struggle after relocation, often finding themselves in equally unstable environments without proper support systems in place. Despite Hawaii's efforts, homelessness has reached critical levels and shelters cannot keep up. Reports indicate that available beds are at capacity, forcing families and individuals to sleep in their cars or makeshift encampments in parks and alleyways. Access to basic necessities like food, hygiene products, and medical care remains a challenge as government aid programs are stretched thin. Meanwhile, the number of unsheltered homeless individuals has doubled over the last decade, signaling that current policies are failing to meet urgent needs. Advocates and experts argue that Hawaii's response has been slow and insufficient, with bureaucratic delays preventing significant change. While politicians promise long-term solutions, many homeless individuals don't have the luxury of waiting. They need immediate action. Organizations working on the front lines emphasize that the government must expand resources, increase emergency shelters, and invest in affordable housing models to have a real impact. Until these measures are fully implemented, Hawaii's homelessness crisis will continue to grow, leaving thousands of residents stranded, ignored, and struggling in one of the wealthiest states in America. Real solutions that could help end homelessness. Hawaii's homelessness crisis has become one of the most pressing issues facing the state, but solutions do exist. They just require funding, commitment, and a shift in priorities. While official government programs have struggled to keep pace, community-led efforts have stepped up to fill the gaps. Tiny home villages, known as kauhale communities, are emerging as a practical and scalable solution to provide safe spaces for displaced individuals. These villages offer single-unit homes, shared kitchens, and communal spaces designed to help residents transition out of homelessness with mental health services, job training, and addiction recovery programs. Although Hawaii has built 10 kauhale villages so far, they are far from meeting demand, leaving thousands still waiting for stable housing. Local nonprofits and grassroots organizations play a critical role in addressing the crisis. Some groups have begun quick-build housing projects, creating affordable modular homes for unhoused residents. Others provide daily meals, hygiene kits, and emergency medical care, ensuring that individuals receive immediate help when government programs fall short. Volunteer-led mental health initiatives are also making a difference, offering counseling and addiction recovery services to help people break free from cycles of dependency. Preventing homelessness is just as important as addressing it, which is why stronger tenant protections are essential. Advocates push for rent control measures to prevent excessive rent hikes, along with eviction prevention programs that provide legal assistance and emergency rental aid. These efforts could help stabilize families before they are forced onto the streets, reducing the number of people entering homelessness each year. Mental health and addiction treatment must be prioritized, as more than 62% of Hawaii's homeless population suffers from at least one disabling condition, including substance abuse and mental illness. Without proper rehabilitation centers and accessible health care, individuals will continue to struggle with recovery and reintegration into society. Mobile health clinics and expanded support services could bring medical and psychological care directly to the streets, ensuring that people receive help before their conditions worsen. The path forward requires immediate action and sustained investment. Expanding kauhale villages, strengthening tenant protections, and increasing mental health and addiction services could help reverse Hawaii's growing homelessness crisis. Without intervention, the crisis will continue to worsen, leaving thousands of residents without safety, stability, or hope. Why Hawaii's social safety net is failing. Hawaii's social safety net, designed to protect its most vulnerable residents, is on the verge of collapse. Federal funding cuts have severely impacted essential programs, leaving thousands without access to mental health services, housing assistance, and basic health care. Medicaid, which provides health insurance for 40% of Hawaii's children, is facing major budget reductions, putting families at risk of losing critical medical coverage. Nonprofits that provide food, shelter, and health care are struggling to stay afloat. Many rely on government contracts, but these contracts have not been adjusted for inflation in over a decade. As a result, organizations cannot afford to retain staff, leading to frequent vacancies and service disruptions. The rising cost of living has made it nearly impossible for these nonprofits to continue operating at full capacity, forcing them to cut back on essential programs. The government's response has been slow and ineffective, with bureaucratic delays preventing urgent action. While lawmakers have proposed a $200 million budget to bolster reserves, the funding does not directly address the immediate needs of struggling families. The focus remains on long-term financial stability, but Hawaii's homeless population and low-income residents need immediate relief. Assistance programs are outdated and underfunded, leaving thousands without the support they need. The demand for mental health services, addiction treatment, and affordable housing has skyrocketed, but funding has not kept pace. Without urgent reform, Hawaii's crisis will continue to spiral out of control, pushing more families into poverty, homelessness, and desperation. Hawaii is often seen as an idyllic paradise, a place of breathtaking scenery, luxury resorts, and endless sunshine. But beyond the postcard-perfect views lies a harsh reality, one that thousands face every day. For them, Hawaii is not a dream destination, but a battleground for survival, where homelessness, addiction, and economic hardship define their existence. The streets tell a different story, filled with makeshift tents, families sleeping in cars, and individuals struggling to make it through another night. The system that was meant to protect them has failed, leaving them invisible to the very society that thrives on the illusion of perfection. The question remains, will the government take meaningful action, or will these voices continue to be ignored? Will real solutions be implemented, or will homelessness in Hawaii remain a crisis hidden behind closed doors? Hawaii's hidden struggles are real, and they demand attention. The homelessness crisis, rising costs, and overlooked individuals fighting for survival, all of it paints a very different picture of paradise than most people see. But the more we talk about these issues, the closer we get to real solutions. If you found this documentary insightful, don't forget to subscribe to Globe Path Travel Documentary for more eye-opening content.